Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me at the mat today. And I think that Thanksgiving is a wonderful day to be thoughtful about gratitude. But of course, our hope would be that it's just a chance to plug back into our awareness about feeling grateful and what that means. And frankly, how do we do that more throughout our daily life, right? That we know that the practice of gratitude, gratitude journaling, or whatever form it might take, has the power to really change our happiness factor. It has the power to change our biology, that the thought that we have actually translates into chemicals. So even as life is difficult, even as we're holding challenge, hardship, pain, whatever might be happening either for us personally, in the circle of loved ones, or our awareness of the larger communities out there, that even inside of that, gratitude is very possible. And it's very important that we're able to absorb that. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the way we're built as animals is that our negative and stress oriented experiences immediately go to long term storage. Unfortunately, our positive ones don't automatically, but we can override that by sitting very presently with that feeling or that thought for at least a minute. So, a minute doesn't sound like a lot, but those of you who've done the 3 minute chocolate meditation with me know that it actually is quite an expansive time frame if you're just being present with it. So, what would it look like to just be present with gratitude and absorb it? Well, it's noticing as you think a grateful thought, and we'll be doing this in our practice in a bit, but you can start anytime. As you have a thought, then beginning to feel what that means in your body. Is it a lifting in the heart space? Is it a lightening in your abdomen? Does your neck relax? Does it lead to other beautiful thoughts? Does it just make you smile or want to giggle or cry with gratitude? And staying present with that emotion and that sensation is what will help take that experience into your long term storage. And so, cumulatively, we actually become just happier, more grateful people. And I would say I want to switch the word happier to the word equanimity, because to me, equanimity is that deeper, abiding happiness that can help us move resiliently through the ups and the downs of challenges. So it's not as fickle as happiness. It's not as dependent on a little this or a little that. So that's number one, knowing that we have the power to really absorb gratitude into our cellular tissue and our nervous system. We're going to be doing a physical practice that I hope will open up the heart space, the rib cage for breath, for digesting our meal. But here's some thoughts about digestion that, again, hold true for life. It's not just on Thanksgiving or a big holiday meal. Number one, that it takes about 15 minutes for our body to recognize that it's full. So if we can eat slowly overall, that is an act of goodness and kindness. We have a philosophy in yoga that is about non-harming, ahimsa. And of course it means don't, kick people, kill people, whatever. But I think ahimsa is a much more subtle value. It's around what we do that diminishes our well-being and harms us on these subtle levels. And overeating is certainly one of those. So by eating slowly, we can enjoy and feel good at the end of it and be able to still breathe deeply, which I'm addicted to. The other interesting bit about eating is that when we begin to eat, our body develops the enzymes in our saliva that we need to digest those specific foods. So, which I find miraculous, but of course the body is brilliant. We just forget it sometimes. So if we can, if we have 7 or 8 different kinds of things on our plate, if we can just take a little bite of each one, chew it slowly, be grateful, be amazed by its beauty, the people who created it, and on, then we're really prepared for the rest of the feast. We're going to be doing some abdominal pumping and other things again that just really get everything fluid in our center body and open up our front line of our body, which tends to get very contracted sitting too much and so on. Or if you've been the cook in the kitchen, you might have been hunched forward with your arms in front of you and so on. So we're going to play with some of those things. I encourage you, add your own, edit, get up and check whatever's on the stove if you need to. And of course, you're welcome to put your video on mute during our practice. Again, I am so grateful that we get to be here together today. I'm grateful that you are well and whole in that body of yours, and I hope this practice will just enhance that. When you are ready to begin your physical practice with me, grab your block, or if you use something softer, more subtle, perhaps a folded blanket or towel, and we're going to begin on our back with that block under the sacral triangle. So bend the knees, raise the hips, and as you settle your pelvis onto the object, really tune into the sensations there. Sometimes it's a bit intense. If it's ouchy, if you feel kind of nervy or anything else, I would come off and replace with a smaller, softer object, or just don't do this at all. Perhaps do bridge instead. Otherwise, if you're finding the ability to release into this, notice if you can extend your legs and give in to gravity. If you're feeling any neck pressure, raise the chin up and back. And please join me in 3 sighing breaths. Inhaling slow, deep and wide, asking, is there more? And releasing through the mouth. We'll do this a couple more times. Just noticing what those releases are like. Do they have a quality of kind of heaviness and relief? Have you been worrying, hurrying, carrying any particular burden or form of stress? Let it move out with that exhale. And you're welcome to maintain this shape as long as it feels fantastic. When you do come off of your object, please then bring the knees to belly, a little spinal rocking side to side. And you might circle the knees. And then widen the knees for happy baby. So some of us can clasp the toes and that feels great, or the blades of the feet, perhaps ankles. But once you've got that position, please anchor the shoulder heads down the back and roll the head a little side to side. This reminds our body that we are in goodness, not striving. Nothing to know, do, or accomplish. This is our yoga. And you might then begin exploring half straddle. So I'm straightening one leg out and really giving a chance for it to totally straighten, and then exploring the other side. So as you're doing this, noticing please if you want to add any little kind of organic bits. Maybe you are flexing and pointing the feet. Pardon me, I realize that I need to mute all. And please check yours and see if yours is unmuted, folks. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So as you are complete with that exploration of straightening and bending, please bring both heels into the butt in butterfly. And I've got a couple options for you here today. One is just holding in this position, maybe adding a little windshield wiper, as we call it, bringing one foot towards the nose and then the other. The other is bringing the feet onto the floor And then raising the hips. So your feet are in butterfly, the soles of the feet touching. I love this position for its ability to really engage and strengthen our glute muscles, which are often tight but kind of weak. Again, we don't do enough to really activate them. So anytime that our hips are back of neutral, as they are when a lot of us are standing and so on, we're not actually using those glute muscles. Notice how that feels, and please gather a few more breaths right there. Notice how that feels. Again, if you're feeling any discomfort, please come out. Beautiful. And then we're going to come right into bridge. So as you're ready, place the feet, raise the hips on up, work the shoulder heads deeply beneath you. And this is really key for letting the neck be soft. And I just want to check, are you able to hear me, folks? Give me a little thumbs up. Yeah, okay, awesome. I think we got it. The next time you're up in bridge, I'm going to ask you to add something I call a foot hover or a leg extension. I like to start with the foot hover because sometimes we just don't know where our back is at yet today. So that would look like this. I've got my hands on my hips so I can kind of notice if the hip drops. I'm going to lift one foot a little bit, and if I do drop my hip, pause to restabilize. If it feels good, go ahead and extend the leg. And switching. Everything as slow as you can, really observing if you're taking on neck tension. We're going to do a little work on that in a moment. And as much as you need to, back and forth until you sense that there's an equality. And slowly release down. I'm going to be bringing us into our compression and expansion breathing. And if you're comfortable laying flat in corpse pose, do. Otherwise, you can keep the knees bent. Gathering a long inhale through the nose. And if you can continue through the nose, if you're not too stuffy, that's ideal. Exhaling, begin to engage your belly towards your spine. Press your spine into the mat like you're trying to press a scale or empty an old air mattress. Asking, is there more? Can you exhale any extra? Empty, empty, empty. On the inhale, softening, allowing yourself to be breathed. I love that feeling of the breath just flowing in. I didn't have to do it. As you continue, please, on your exhale compression, check in with your neck. And this is where I love to roll my head side to side and create that disconnect, if you will, between the engaged core and the neck and the trapezius muscles up here that kind of want to get involved in everything we do, whether it's, chopping vegetables or you name it. They tend to tighten. If you have any area of the abdomen that you feel like isn't kind of clicking in, go ahead and use your fingers to tell those muscles get involved. You might even add the perineum, pelvic floor. Notice how strong you are in this engagement. And we're going to continue to create a peacefulness in the face and neck. So some little add-ons as you continue. Turning your gaze up and in towards your third eye, between the center of the eyebrows and kind of up a little. Lightly connecting the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth, with the rest of the tongue and jaw soft. You might add your ujjayi breath, that little throat contraction, so that the breath makes the whooshing sound of wind in the trees or ocean waves. As you continue here for another kind of 4 to 6 rounds, depending on your breath length, I want to talk a little bit about the tongue. So they've been able to study that when our tongue is sandwiched against the roof of the mouth, that often there is some form of stress, maybe even anger that's happening. And that conversely, when we soften our tongue, we aren't able to maintain the same level of stress or anger. So if for you, daily life, or in fact holiday life, brings up stuff that kind of makes you go into that mode, remember you've got all this power inside of your body, no one can even see what you're doing, to soften some of that energy that just does not feel great when it's coursing through you. I'll be offering a couple of other tools as well throughout the practice, because I know that most of us experience some form of stress around holidays or getting together with people, as much as we also value it. All right, we're going to come into lion stretch next. So the next time you inhale, still laying down, you're going to sweep your arms overhead. And then on the exhale, inviting you to bring the elbows into your ribs, make claws, and open your jaw wide. You can also stick out the tongue. Let's do a few more. Inhaling, sweeping, reaching. You can roll wrists, ankles, do whatever feels great. Exhaling, lion stretch. And I'm hoping you can feel a deep engagement of that occipital ridge area at the base of the skull, an area that often kind of tightens when we're stressed. But by tightening it more, we actually allow it to kind of unhinge, open, release. Let's do one last one. Release, relax, swallow, breathe. So I'm hoping that all of this has brought you tuned in a little more to this amazing body that you're in. And now we're going to dial in to a slower, deeper breath. We want to lean towards a 5.5 second inhale and 5.5 second exhale. We're not forcing it, we're not striving. It doesn't matter if we ever get there. And we're just leaning towards that elongation. And we'd love to maintain that throughout our practice. I'll remind you now and again about lengthening into that yogic breath. Let's find one more. When that is complete and staying in that kind of meditative breath state, please bring your right knee in to the belly. Release wind pose. Heels are flexed, shoulder heads are activating down. Notice if your elbows are winging out, anchor them in. This again is an invitation for the neck, jaw, etc. to stay soft. Deep belly breath. Invite your belly to meet the thigh, powering down through your extended leg. So right here we're giving a little massage to our ascending colon. And when you feel ready, we'll switch left knee in, massaging the descending colon. Asking of the breath, is there more? Now we're going to be coming into abdominal pumping. And a lot of us are most comfortable doing this with the legs extended, just because you really get that nice spinal movement. But again, if your low back feels sensitive by doing that, please bend the knees. Gathering a long inhale. Exhale. Hold out. Do not breathe as you draw your belly in towards the spine and push it towards the sky. It's like you're saying, see how skinny I am? Big Buddha belly. Until you need to breathe. You can add a nice reach and stretch during that time if you want, and then inviting you to return for another round. You might decide to slow or speed that pumping. I like to kind of, after I've emptied the breath, draw the belly in, hold, and kind of try to draw it in further, like I'm trying to bring my stomach up under my ribs. Often that'll bring a kind of stretch into the clavicle and maybe even the throat area. And of course, a sighing breath, a wonderful way to just move any of that tension that you dislodged from your abdomen. This is sort of one of our central carrying places for stress of all sorts. Our hips can carry a lot of that too. So I'm going to bring us into reclined pigeon, crossing the right ankle onto the left thigh, heels flexed. Hug that right knee tight to the chest. See if you can actually make contact. And then rotating a little left. If you feel like you're kind of at risk of rotating too far left, you can always release that left arm to give you a little bit of a support. Sometimes I take that left hand to my foot and use it as an extra kind of bit of leverage to find that juiciest angle. You could, of course, be in kind of classic pigeon pose as well. Sending another thoughtful breath down into the hips, being curious. How much stretch can you receive? It's like you're giving yourself a massage with each breath. And in your own time, releasing and creating the stretch on the other side. Ujjayi, yogic breath, soft tongue. Make sure that you're exploring that edge. We want a place of intensity, but where the body knows that it's safe to soften around it, and you give it that safety and permission with the presence of your slow, deep, and wide breath. Is this side different? And a slow release. One more expression of bridge. And I want to make sure that we all have a relaxed neck during this. So for sure, working those shoulder heads beneath you. If it's appropriate in your body to add yoga mudra, intertwining the fingers, fine. If so, you're pressing your pinkies towards the floor, your fists towards the heels, and all of us in this last greedy breath, see if you can send your ribs higher away from your arms. And slowly, slowly down, knees to belly to come into spinal twist. So I'm going to come into a double knee down twist, an embryo pose. If you prefer single knee down twist, you could just release one leg to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to take my arms out to a T. I'm going to anchor my thighs together so my lower body is just one single unit. And it makes it safe and easy to slowly lower down to one side, perhaps using your free hand to anchor the thighs. And then, oh, like you're just yawning and waking up for the first time today, reaching out behind you, gathering deep, massaging breath. And then begin to explore the space behind you with that back arm. Maybe you're even coming all the way around the body. Notice where the head wants to be. Would it feel good to extend that top leg into your waiting hand? And when I say would it be good means, is there an extra yummy stretch that you can breathe into? If your body just kind of goes into holding, then not so much. We want to go back to the last place that was expansive. When you're complete, going to your other side. If you're wanting a little extra intensity, you can kind of scooch your floor shoulder more towards the outside of the mat. So you're kind of coming more onto your shoulder blade instead of kind of the deltoid of that floor shoulder. Again, what's your best angle? And most importantly, where is your deepest breath here? Where does that last bit of inhale stretch you, massage you? I like to think of each inhale as a little love note to these parts of the body that get so kind of contracted. And you think about this front chest area. My goodness, rarely does it get to open like this. Ah. And in your own slow time, we're going to press up to seated. So if you want to just roll kind of onto that side and press up, or spinal rock, however you'd like. We're going to do a little seated movement, and I like to be on a cushion or something so that my spine is upright as I'm doing this. We're going to be doing a little Sufi Grind, it's called. So we're going to just take the spine in a circular fashion, keeping the head upright. And so I'm going to go counterclockwise first, which is considered a pattern of unwinding in many, many cultures. So taking the rib cage forward, to the left, back, and to the right. And you can match the breath with the movement or not as you choose. And you might in this moment just think of any pattern, thought form that you're just in this moment ready to release, recognizing it doesn't serve you. And notice how it feels to imagine being free of that thought. When you're ready to reverse directions, then taking the ribs to the right and back, to the left and forward. And we consider this the building sequence. So this is a beautiful time to be very thoughtful about what we'd like to cultivate. I like coming up with a mantra, either like a single word or a small grouping of words. You might be using your ujjayi breath for that beautiful kind of mind cleansing breeze, so that only that intention, that mantra is shining. You might even kind of project it up onto that third eye part of your mind screen. Let's do a couple more that direction. Maybe a little soft smile on your face, knowing how powerful you are. This is. And as you're ready, slowly coming to a still point. Notice how that mantra sets in your body. And if you're enjoying that, you can continue to keep that on your mind screen as we continue in our practice. We're going to roll forward onto our hands and our knees. Intelligent hands, cow-cat. One of the simplest movements in yoga and one of the most important. Inhaling, drawing the heart forward, tailbone back, staying long in the back of the neck, resisting the urge to look forward. Exhaling, tucking the tailbone, letting the head hang. What's there today? Letting breath initiate motion and finding that slower, deeper breath. 5.5 second inhale, 5.5 second exhale, or something like that. The next time you are in cat back, invitation to hold, and just send your ribs side to side. Sometimes while I'm doing this, I'll also kind of send my hips back a little towards the heel. It can provide a wonderful side body stretch that we don't get very often, but is really, really healthy for us. And then I'm going to take my hands wide. My pinkies are right out at the edges of the mat. I'm going to take my feet wide. And we're going to use a strong cat back to come into bear pose. Bear pose is like downward facing dog, but with that wider stance. And I'm going to bend my knees as deeply as I can. So very different than downward dog where we're working our legs towards straight. Breathing here, notice there's the opportunity to kind of lift and settle with the breath, almost like you're an object bobbing on the waves. You might have your gaze up and in or settled between the feet. And we're going to do a little pumping here. If you've got any wrist intensity that makes this too much, you might do a little more cow-cat. Otherwise, inhaling, come forward until shoulders are above the hands. Exhaling, return to bear. Good. Go ahead and do this a couple more times, asking of the breath, is there more? And can I stay soft in the neck? You could also be doing a little forearm plank if you preferred. We'll be getting to that in a bit. One last time. And then please settle into your child's pose, or if that's not great for your knees, walk your hands back to ragdoll. You might love up the wrists a little bit. And for this first breath, just soften, sink. This moment, this body, this breath. And then what would it be like to walk, creep, spider, walk your fingertips forward until those arms are completely straight and perhaps the whole arm is off of the mat. I'm going to ask you to take a couple more expansive breaths here, and I'm hoping how you can feel it kind of expands into this area where the ribs, the armpit, the shoulder blade all meet. It's interesting when we consider having shoulder and neck pain, we often don't realize that a lot of it is just being actually way too tight through that whole region. See if you can remedy that with your breath. And when we come up out of this, please use a nice tailbone tuck. Marvelous. Returning to table, we're going to do a little more core activation. I feel like when we're in our core, we're more emotionally present, and we're also less likely to use our neck for things. So finding what I call stable table, which is kind of the action of cat back, but with a nice elongated spine, neck liberated. And please just slowly lift right hand, left knee, and hold. Notice if you dropped your chest at all, reinvigorate it. Slowly return and witness the moment all four limbs are bearing the weight. Notice the kind of quiet that comes over the core. And we're going to stimulate it again. Left hand, right knee lifting. Breathing with all the softness of a resting baby while we're in this effort. And release. We're going to do that again, but this time extending our limbs. So first releasing one hand, one knee, and then reaching long and holding. So I'm holding because I want a chance to notice, again, if I've adjusted, given up my alignment, am I breathing? Is my neck soft? Maybe I'll take those limbs just a little out to the side. Woohoo. And a slow return back, as slow as you can make it. Other side. And maybe a little out to the side. Is this side different? You know, some of us have one side of our back that is a lot tighter or doesn't feel as strong. That can show up in these poses. And release. All right. We're going to come into downward facing dog now. So remember, even in downward dog, your hands don't have to be directly in line with the shoulders. So if you experience neck and shoulder tension when you do that, take them wider. Nice cat back, shoulders anchoring down, and settling into your version of downward facing dog. Maybe the knees are bent a little, a lot. Maybe you like pedaling. That's one of my favorites. Exploring and kind of massaging the back of the leg all the way down to the Achilles tendon, really. And I'm going to invite us in our first plank of the day. And if this is too much, you can come down, like I said, and settle into forearm plank. You could do cow-cat. But we're going to come into plank, check our alignment before we proceed into our dog series. So I want to make sure that my weight is in the full circle of the palm, not in the wrist. So if your hands are too far forward, bring them back a little. First plank of the day, I imagine, come down to your knees. And then please join me in this very thoughtful chaturanga. First, just bend your elbows a couple of inches and check in. Notice if you've winged or shrugged. And then thoughtfully try to work into your deeper bend so that your head and chest are preceding your hips. It's as if you want to kiss the floor before anything else touches. There are 1,000 ways to kiss the earth. I love that quote. Inhale into your cobra and hang out here with me. My hope is that your breath is kind of pulsing you a little up and down, anchoring through the pelvis. Maybe you want to turn this into upward facing dog. Make sure you've got no wings, no shrugs, and then just press with the hands either onto the knees for a knee down version, or tops of the feet, or balls of the feet. Beautiful. Taking a nice breath or two. And on the exhale, downward facing dog. Nice strong core, hips leading up and back. Sighing breath. Marvelous. Slowly take right leg flying and notice if you're giving up any alignment. You could do this in table as well. We're going to be coming into crescent lunge, so if you prefer to come from standing and step back, you're welcome to do that. We're going to all meet in crescent lunge in a moment. If you want to add a little hip opening, bending that top knee, whatever feels right, nice strong core support. Grab that foot if you need to get it right under your knee. Steer that left hip bone forward, right hip bone back. Feel how strong, stable, rooted you are, so that when you come up, there's a soft, peaceful opening that comes across your heart and breath space. Where do your arms want to be today? I found that one of my favorites is this position I'm starting to think of as hug emoji. But it just feels wonderful. It's powerful and open, and I'm able to thoroughly relax my neck inside of it. If you'd like to create a little back bend, it's sending the heart forward. Let's return to spine neutral, bringing hands into prayer, and then transitioning. Warrior two, Virabhadrasana 2. Thighs are externally rotating. Stack that left shoulder back. And if you're really seeking neck ease, just keep your face in alignment with the chest. You can still work with the arms forward and back and maybe palms open. I do love platter hands. It's really great for that chest and shoulder opening, but also this right hand is considered our offering hand energetically. So if you have a wish that you'd like to offer up, a gift, please do. Breath, slow, deep and wide, lifting and settling us. And on a long inhale, straightening that front leg, reaching up through the right arm, counter reaching down through the left. I'm going to look down to the floor because my neck is happier there. Exploring how breath moves and massages you here. One more long inhalation. And exhaling, flowing forward, really slow towards your lateral stretch. And in lateral stretch, we want to stretch that top side of the body. Before we extend, practice really engaging your lower waistline to your upper, stacking the shoulders and the head, and then reaching. My hope is that you get the gift of a stretch all the way down, maybe even to your hip bones, psoas muscle. You might pulse that upper arm a little behind the ear. And I'm going to take us into a spinal twist. I forgot to invite you to have your block handy if you prefer that version. You would just have that out on the left side of your mat here. But as you're ready, rotating out of this position, if you're using a block, that left hand will land on it, can go to the floor, whatever works. Maybe widen your stance between your feet, left to right, to make this easier on the hips. And then as you're ready, I want to create our twist really thoughtfully. So we're inhaling and lengthening. Then I'm exhaling and I'm going to ring the rag, meaning I'm going to use all my core muscles from the pubic bone on up to draw in and around. I'm going to let inhale take space, empty again, maybe raise that arm up. Maybe bring it into a partial bind. Seeking the delicious, and a slow unwind, downward facing dog. Sighing breath. We're going to be coming into our flow on the other side. Notice if there's anything you want to adjust or do your own way, please do. Slow taking that left leg flying.
And we're going to pause for a moment to notice. Did anything bend, shift sideways? Make your core body take over. And maybe you want to open up that hip. Keep pressing through both arms. Slow journey to your crescent lunge. And everybody checking in. Right hip bone forward, left hip bone back. You should feel how that kind of clicks the thighs in and makes coming up, again, safe, peaceful, strong. This is our spiritual warrior series. So this is not about duking it out, warrior. This is about finding that place of centeredness in ourselves that allows us to respond to what comes at us in the world in a way that is calm, and sometimes even as we might be telling someone, hey, no thank you, we can do it without taking their head off. Soft tongue, soft gaze. One more long inhale, maybe a back bend. Aligning the spine again before opening to your warrior two, Virabhadrasana 2. Platter hands, that left hand is our receiving hand. Is there any blessing, gift, insight, form of support that you'd like to invite in? And maybe there's just that mantra that you cultivated earlier on your mind screen that you want to imagine. With our yoga, we're creating so much space in our body, and we like to say nature abhors a vacuum, so what will you fill it with? On a long inhale, reaching up, left arm, right arm, counter reaching down. Never hesitate to come out of the pose a little on that inhale. Give it a ton of space. You'll just find a deeper place to travel after that. One more. On your next exhale, flowing into that lateral stretch. Again, checking the waistline, the stacked shoulder, and the head. My head is almost always forward of my spine unless I check it. And I really see that is true with most people. Is this side different? What's knowable? And when you release out again, you might choose to add that block. Certainly widen out the feet. I'm walking my left foot just a little further to the outside of the mat. Elongating from heel to crown, shoulder heads are drawing down. That's key part of our core strength as we rotate in our ring the rag motion. Notice if your body's kind of winging back or away from the leg. Keep it super long. And maybe you're opening that arm, partial bind. You can also just keep that hand on the thigh. Enjoying its encouragement and support as you pulse with breath. Is there more? Try not to let your back foot rotate, just the spine. And in your own time, release out. Downward facing dog. Sighing breath. We're going to be coming to our bellies. If you want to do another little plank to chaturanga action to get down there, please do. We're going to come into jet airplane. It's one of the best poses I know for really developing our posterior chain, as we call it, our back body. And we want that back strong. Shoulder heads anchor, pelvis anchors. Slide the hands back, tented fingertips. And so the shoulder heads should be as far away from the floor as you possibly can get them. And now the breath starts to pulse us again, lifting and settling. Inhaling, we extend the spine, maybe also the hands are reaching towards the wall behind you. Exhaling, we return. You might get floppy in between, and then let the next inhale ignite action, up to you. Maybe you enjoy holding this pose and then playing with reaching one arm forward, one arm back. Either way, I hope you're feeling that shoulder blade sandwich. You'll only get that with that shoulder head rotating down and back. And last breath here, maybe you want to add the legs, maybe you want to extend the arms forward in Superman. If that creates a bunch of neck or low back tension, keep those arms back. And exhaling, press to your child's pose. Take those knees wide. Acknowledging your focus on breath. It's so awesome. Staying present, noticing as the mind wanders, bringing it back. Love it. All right. I'm going to bring us into a pose that I think is wonderful for catching ourselves in all kinds of things. Mind wandering, tightening the mouth and the tongue because we're scared we're going to fall over. So we're going to come into our gate pose. If this is too much on your wrists, you could go back to just doing some stuff on your feet, more warrior or what have you. You could do tree pose as a counterbalancing pose. But we're going to start on our hands and knees, again with that nice stable table, shoulder heads anchored. Take your left foot back 90. Plant it, really root it. Squeeze your right butt cheek towards the left edge of the mat. And first, please just bring your left hand to your hip. We want to pause there and create the rest of our structure. So I'm going to elongate my crown away from the foot. I'm going to stack that left shoulder. If you feel like you've got that and you want to raise the arm, you certainly can. You could also be playing with lifting that floor hand, lifting that floor knee, or lifting that back leg. And as you play with all of this, I want you to, again, check your tongue, check your breathing, slow, deep, and wide. Check in with your neck. Often rotating the face down is a great way to release any tension that you're taking on there. And slowly release out. And let's find our pose on the other side. Stepping back with that right foot 90. Squeeze the left butt cheek. Right hand to hip. Spine elongating. Lower rib cage rising, and we reach to the sky. So if it doesn't bother your neck, it can be actually quite fun to gaze up at the ceiling and get that extra little bit of challenge running through our system. I hope you are wobbling some so that you get to test and challenge yourself at the breath. Again, the tongue, very soft, maybe a soft smile. And slowly releasing out. We're going to come into forearm plank, another place where we get to practice softening in all the ways that we can while we're working hard, while things are intense. So I'm going to bring us in today from our knees. You don't have to do it that way. As you know, you can come from your belly. But it's kind of a nice alternate, especially for people who have sensitive low backs. I think this is great because you can start in a little bit of a tuck, kind of a cat back. Come down to one forearm and the other. And then powerfully extend back one leg and the other without changing your spine. So we don't want to have the hips hanging. We shouldn't feel like, we've got any pain or discomfort. Once you've got it, see if you can extend and elongate into more of a neutral spine. And this should allow, I hope, our front and back body to work together. We've been trying to open the front, strengthen the back. Tune in for a few soft, deep breaths here. If you're wanting more challenge, raising one foot a little off the floor at a time. When you do come out, turn your head to one side and become a lump. Nothing to know, do, or accomplish. Now I'm going to offer us one more front body opener. And I'm going to be laying on the floor here and doing quad stretch by clasping one ankle at a time. You could do a standing version if that works better in your world. I'm going to bring my forearm to the front of the mat and anchor my butt cheeks as I squeeze back or reach back for that first ankle. I want my knee to stay back in line with the hip. So if you've got to grab a strap to make that happen, please do, or get someone to help you. And then I'm just going to rest my forehead again so that I can tune in to the action that's happening in that leg. So if I squeeze the glutes down, I should get a pretty good stretch in the thigh, at least most of us will. If you're super flexible, if you're not getting much, you could try and pretend you're reaching for the wall behind you with your bent knee. And of course, the breath is the most important part of all this. So you could also relax the butt and re-engage. Hello, quadriceps. And we'll switch. Keeping those glutes engaged protects your back while you're doing this, whether you're in this version or the standing version. And releasing. You might press back to your child's pose as a nice counter shape. Tune into breath, to what's needed. And then inviting you to do any other shapes, stretches that your body is called to. And maybe it's something we've already done. Maybe you're needing another round of pigeon or something like that. You want to do standing jet airplane. You know, a lot of the things that we did to open up our front body and strengthen our back body can be done standing, right? So we can be doing standing hip pump if we can feel like, God, I've just been sitting too much, or I've been chopping wood or making food or doing these things that kind of hinge me forward. We want to give the body that opposite shape. It's super important. When you're complete with that, I'm going to ask you to find your resting shape. One of the best resting shapes ever can be if you've got a block and you have a bolster, placing that bolster on the block and reclining with your butt on the floor and your back onto it. And this can be created also with like a couple of yoga mats up on your block if you've got one to spare. Perhaps if you're doing a seated meditation, you want to just kind of snuggle up with your back to a wall or to an ottoman. Just that little extra bit of support might make the difference for you to be able to thoroughly settle in. Maybe you're coming into your corpse pose on your back. Take a moment, get comfy. You might choose to cover up your chest with a scarf or a shawl. This has a wonderful way of just helping us be more introverted. I'm going to bring us into some pranayama practice to close here. And at any point, if you need to let it drift away and just move into your yogic sleep, please do. For now, I'm going to invite you to tune in again, third eye point with your gaze. What do you see back there? Light, darkness, colors? Notice the presence of breath. Find a soft mouth. And please join me first in a box breath. It's a simple breath practice of 4 counts each. Inhaling 4, holding in internal breath lock 4, exhaling 4, external breath lock 4. Notice if your mind has wandered or you lose track of where you are, just tune in again. Inhaling, then holding in, exhaling, then holding out. 4 counts each.
And you've completed your next cycle, letting that go. And I'm offering this today because it's known to be a very kind of powerful breath practice for just focusing, for becoming present. And that appears to me to be something that as humans we're always seeking. And I love that this is a pranayama practice that you can do without anyone even knowing that you're doing it. So it's a way to kind of create your own sense of presence, to be able to show up for whatever you want to. I'm going to have you take it now into relaxation breath, and hoping that you'll find a few minutes of deep rest. So you're inhaling to the count of 4, holding in to the count of 7, and then exhaling to the count of 8. If you find yourself running out of breath, please don't struggle. The most important thing really is that your exhale is extending long past the inhale. Inhaling 4, holding in 7, exhaling 8. With each exhale, inviting a deeper softening throughout the body, letting your head get heavier, especially if you're laying down. Softening through the neck and shoulders, jaw, all the way down into the limbs, the center body, all the way down to the feet. If this is feeling wonderful and you sense that you could stay deeply inside of it for a while longer, I heartily encourage you. I'm going to wrap up our group practice. I'm going to chime the bowl a few times and then offer a few yogic words. The word namaste, which is often a greeting, is, I think, particularly appropriate both when we are joyful and thrilled at the meeting of another, and also when we sometimes are challenged by the presence of another or something that someone might have said, because it essentially means that the divine in me recognizes the existence of the divine in you, and that when we're in that place, both of us, that we are as one. There's a wholeness, there's connection, there's no separation, no division, no divisiveness. And so I have found myself using it at times when I'll get so caught up in thought about being irritated by someone else and what they should do and who they should be. And then I remember, namaste. If I weren't as petty and judgmental as I am, and you weren't as irritating as you are, we would be connected. And I realize sometimes situations are more intense than that. But even still, namaste can be something that just kind of brings a little air inside of that which is hard. It brings a little breath inside of that which feels so contracted and permanent and impermeable. So when we say namaste, it's like choosing to breathe and create space in our body and our being and all of our ideas. So grateful that you each got to the mat with me today. What a beautiful gift that you give to the others that will come across your path today. Many blessings. May you be safe and whole and happy. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. Namaste. Truly grateful for all of you, each of you. I hope you had a wonderful practice. I hope it nourishes and supports you throughout this day and the coming. And I hope to see you again soon at the mat.